My name is Rajat Sudana. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT. I'm going to be a main host today. With me, I have Harsha, who's also a GMAT RC expert. He's a very senior GMAT RC expert. He's going to be our co-host, as well as Lisha, who is a GMAT strategy expert, and she will also be our co-host today. My goal in this webinar is to demonstrate what it takes to ace GMAT RC, number one, and then number two, inculcate some good habits so that you guys can then, apply those habits and improve your GMAT RC score. So at the end of this webinar, you should know what does it take to ace GMAT RC, what are the areas that you need to focus on, and then you should have a chart of, or rather a plan as to how would you get to that 90th percentile in about 10 days or so. Okay. Before I get started, I'd kind of like to understand a bit about this group. Let me put in a poll question here. Let's get this one data point in this. What is your current RC ability as of now? So let's get these data points. What is your current RC ability? And when I get about 20 odd responses, I'm going to broadcast results. So I have 24, 25. The question is, what's your current RC ability? Let me broadcast results, and you can see a big group over here is at that 60th to 70th percentile. We do have quite a few folks who are at the 50th to 60th percentile. Remember, this is not accuracy. This is ability, just to be very clear. I'm not asking about your accuracy. Your 70th percentile ability means that you're probably answering medium difficulty questions with about 85 to 90% accuracy. So that's what 70th percentile ability means. And if you don't know your current ability, you should take a Sigma X mock. But overall, what we see is we have the biggest group over here is those who are on that 60 to 70th percentile, which means you should have a fairly you should have a reasonable amount of time answering questions in this session. We do have quite a few folks who are in that 50th to 60th percentile ability, and then we have the rest of guys as well. Okay, that's good. I have this other poll question, which if you haven't responded, please do so, which is, when do you plan to take the test? Is it in the next 15 days, 15 to 30, or 16 to 30, 31 to 45, and then so on and so forth. And again, you can see about a month to 45 is where the biggest group is. We do have quite a few folks who plan to take their test within the next 15 days as well. But let me ask a couple of other questions. This helps me profile this group as a whole. Let's get your target GMAT score as well. So what is your target GMAT score? Let's get that data point too. What is your target GMAT score? All right, the biggest group here is in that 710, 720 group. We have another fairly significant number of folks in the 730 to 750, about 16% in the 760 or higher group. And then we have about 11% of you who are in that 660 to 700 as well. That's wonderful. So with that, we have a very exhaustive free trial. We have a few, about 30 odd video lessons there, where each video lesson is essentially evaluated by the technology that we've built in it, and it gives you feedback that's personalized to your performance in that particular concept. Also, we have a few other free webinars. We have a free algebra webinar that's tomorrow. If you want to register for that, you can click on register now button and register for that webinar. And then we also have a free GMAT sentence correction webinar that is next Saturday. In that webinar, we're going to talk about e-GMAT's meaning-based approach. It's the approach that we pioneered in 2011, and we're in the third generation of that approach. So if inequality is an absolute value or an area of worry for you, definitely register for that. If you want to learn the meaning-based approach to solve 700 level questions, definitely register for this particular webinar. All right, with that, let me go right into the webinar pane. As I go there, the screen either will have or will be in the process of changing for you. I'm going to wait about 10 more seconds. Once the screen changes, which is when you'd see reading comprehension, strategies to reach 90th percentile, then if you can type in yes, that'd be great. Or let me just put in a yes, no poll question over here. Oh, quite a few of you are typing in yes, that's wonderful. Okay, so just some logistics part. So you have a presentation part, which is right front and center, which is the PowerPoint with the black background and white font. Below that, you'd see at the bottom of the screen, you'd have a Q&A or question and answer part. If you have any questions, post those questions there. That way, Harsha would be able to answer those questions. On the right-hand side where you're typing yes, that's a place for my questions and your answers. So we have about 70 students in the webinar. Our goal really is to keep this webinar fairly interactive. And the only way we do this is through our questions to you and your questions to us. So your questions to us go in the Q&A pod, which is right at the bottom, and our questions to you go on the right-hand side, which is kind of where you participate and life becomes fun overall. So with that, let me just go right into the crux of this webinar. We're going to talk a bit about your study plan for the first 6 minutes or so. Then we're going to go right into the core of this webinar. We're going to talk about GMAT RC. That's going to be about 120 minutes, and towards the end, we'll have an open-ended Q&A. If you have questions that we've not been able to respond to, whether they're related to GMAT RC or other aspects of GMAT or MBA, usually we like to answer those questions here. If you have questions about RC, most of them should be answered here. If any of those are left, that's when we take them there. Okay. So with that, for many of you, this is your first introduction to e-GMAT for the first time. You guys are probably speaking with anyone at e-GMAT or interacting live with anyone at e-GMAT. So I want to just tell you a bit about who we are as a company. And the best way to describe who we are as a company and the philosophy that we follow is to look at learning architectures. Okay. So when you think about fundamental learning architectures, there are two architectures that exist in the world. One is what we call as book-based architecture. And which is kind of where you have a lot of concepts, you learn concepts, you go practice questions, and then hope that you succeed. And the second is a private tutoring based architecture. It's an architecture which is personalized to you as a learner. It involves giving you guys active feedback, dynamically changing your learning content to fit your needs, and constantly giving you feedback and providing a metric so that you can really see whether you're actually improving or not. At e-GMAT, we built all our courses around this private tutoring-based architecture, and as we build technology, and we've invested upwards of $10 million in building our technology platform, and another $5 to $7 million in building content, we try and make our product more and more like what interacting with a private tutor would be with regards to giving feedback. And just to really give you an example of how that personalizes learning for you, I'm going to talk about building your study plan. Why? Because building your study plan is one of the first things that everyone should do. And about 80% of test takers actually work with a generic study plan. Generic study plans, in my opinion, do more harm than good. So let's kind of really talk about how do you get to a 720 score, because 720 seems to be kind of that sweet spot for this particular group. Now, the methodology that I'm describing here would work for everyone, regardless of whether you're looking at a 700, 720, 760, or even a 650 score. So if you want to get to a 720 score, one of the things that's really important is to really create that personalized path to that score, depending on your starting point, and then an optimized way to get to your ending point. So let's see how you do that. And we're going to take an example of a student who's starting at a 600 and who wants to get to a 720. Now at e-GMAT, we build your personalized study plans in 3 steps. The first step is to really figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, which is what we call as quantifying your starting abilities. We kind of figured out, within verbal, SCCR and RC, where do you stand? Earlier on, I asked a question, what's your RC ability? As a part of that process, we measure that. We also measure what's your arithmetic and algebra ability. Now, given your starting abilities and given your target score, we then find out what's the most optimized way for you to get to your target GMAT score. Okay, and that's something that's really important. Why? Because depending on your strengths, there's an optimized path to get to your target score, and then if you and there's a sub-optimized path, and if you take the sub-optimized path, not only is it going to take you a lot longer, but your chances of success are going to be a lot less as well. Once we have your starting abilities, once we have your target milestones, that's when we personalize your course and then really so these are the pieces of course that you should study. These are the pieces that you need not study. And again, it all depends on essentially what your needs are. A lot of people ask, how long will it take for me to finish your course? And my response to that is, most people don't need to go through all aspects of the course given their natural strengths. Okay. So how do we quantify your starting abilities? We ask you to take our proprietary mocks called a Sigma X mock. It gives you your starting abilities in quant and verbal. Then we feed all of that data in an AI-driven GMAT planner. We call this a personalized study planner. And we feed that data in, and it looks at various paths to get to your target GMAT score, and it recommends the most optimized path for it. So for this particular student, this guy had a starting ability of a quant ability of Q44 or 50th percentile, and a verbal ability of V28 or 51st percentile. And this is essentially the PSP interface. You can really see the various steps involved over here. Okay. Then the system takes that data and really says, okay, to get to a 720, what should be a target quant, target verbal score? You can change that. That's where you see the manually enter score as well. And then it says, okay, what ability scores should you look at or should you achieve to get there? Here you can see this particular student must have been stronger in SC. That's why it's aiming for a higher score in SC compared to other subsections. It then curates, a study plan for you guys. With your starting abilities and your ending abilities. On the left-hand side, you see your starting abilities that came from PSP. On the right-hand side, your target milestones. And then in the center, you can get, how long would you need to study. This is a time estimate, assuming that you put in dedicated effort, assuming that you're diligent there. Okay. And then from there on, it creates a day-by-day calendar, which you can download and use if you need to. It takes into account how many days you're going to spend during a weekday and as well as during a weekend. Okay. For those of you who don't have a study plan, for those of you who are not e-GMAT students, you guys can get your study plan by clicking on this link over here and work with a mentor to do that. Okay, so this kind of tells you one aspect of the personalization. This is something that we do even before you start learning the first concept on the e-GMAT platform. And it's because of this personalization where you not only get your personalized study plan, you also get metrics that you need to hit to get to that target GMAT score. We also track those metrics. We've been over the last 2 years since we've introduced this level of personalization, we've accounted for 3 out of 5 700+ scores reported on GMAT Club. Again, purely this is in the review section. So when you think about, if you go to the review section, look at just 700+ scores. So we're not looking at all reviews, just those reviews where students have reported scores of 700 or higher. You notice that e-GMAT accounts for about 60%. Everyone else accounts for about 40%, and this is all of these other guys combined. And you can really see that because all of these reviews are organized chronologically. So if you look at just the last 1 month, last quarter, last 1 year, you'd kind of get to that 60% for e-GMAT and 40% for everyone else. Now, a lot of you know us for our verbal prowess. What you don't know is e-GMAT does also account for a majority of Q49+ scores. So since 2021, which is when we launched our Quant 2.0 course, we've accounted for 49% of all Q49 plus scores since then. And when it comes to 5-star reviews, when you have most 700+ scores, most quant and most verbal successes, you also have most 5-star reviews as well. Okay. Hopefully, you guys already have the link to the study plan. For those of you who are not connected to me with me on LinkedIn, you can connect with me. It'll be for you a good way to connect with students at top business schools. You'd also be able to get to know what's going on in the GMAT and MBA world. Okay. With that, let's talk about this. Now, most of you are aiming for that 710, 720 score. Many of you are aiming for that 7:30 to 7:50, and so I want to ask this one question. To achieve that, what do you think should be your RC ability to get for you to get to that 7:10, 7:20? You can type in your answers in the short answer poll here. Okay, 80 is a good answer. 80 is a good answer. So if you're looking at 710, 720, 80th percentile is what you need. Of course, if it's higher, you get a bit more headroom in other subsections. But yes, 80th percentile is ideally what you're looking at if you want RC to actually play its part in helping you getting there. Okay, if you're aiming for, of course, a 760, that number goes higher. Okay, and I want to make sure that you understand what 80th percentile ability means. 80th percentile ability doesn't mean 80th% accuracy. It means that you're among the top 20% of test takers. Now, how it translates to accuracy is when you're looking at a medium difficulty question, and 80th percentile ability means that you're able to answer 90% of all medium questions correctly. And when you're looking at hard questions, and 80th percentile ability means you're able to answer about 60% of all hard questions correctly. And of course, easy pretty much every question correctly also. So again, when it comes to 80th versus 90th, this is what the differentiating factor is. There isn't a whole lot of headroom in the medium space there. Okay. Again, if you want a 730 or higher, 90th percentile is what you should aim for in this case. So first things first, how do you guys approach GMAT RC today? And essentially, I want you, there are three ways in which people approach GMAT RC today. One is essentially they skim through the passage and first and then go to questions. And then they basically see, okay, what parts to study. The second is some people read questions first and then read just those parts and focus on those. And the other is they first go take a deep read into the passage. They focus on learning what the passage is about. And then they take time on, they go to the questions and come back to the passage only if it's needed. So which approach do you follow today? Let's get a few more responses. I have about 80 students in the webinar right now. I only have about 30 responses. Which approach do you follow? Let's get at least 40 responses, 38, 39. All right, I have upwards of 40 responses in the webinar. Let me end the poll. I'm going to broadcast the results, and you can really see about 70% of you, spend the time on reading the passage. That's our preferred approach as well. About 26% of you skim through the passage and then go to questions first, and then go back and read the detail from the passage. For those of you who follow approach number one, my goal would be to kind of make you follow approach number three. For those of you who are already following approach number three, I want to make sure that you guys get better at it. This is something that I want to make sure that we achieve through this webinar. Okay. Now, what do we think it's important for us to get you to that 90th percentile? Okay. Actually, there's another interesting question. So what's the level of understanding that you guys have when you read a passage? And this is your estimate of what's your level of understanding when you read the passage. For those of you who actually do that deep read. Let's get a few more responses here. Again, about 30 odd responses, because the other 12, you guys don't read the passage in the first go. All right, we do have about upwards of 30 responses. So about 68% of you are in that between 50 to 75%, another 26% between 75 and 90. And then only one person is there in that 90 to 100%. Again, my goal here would be to move this chart up, where we get more and more people in that 90 to 100, and then the remaining in that 75 to 90. And then again, when we think about the level of understanding, we're not talking about understanding the technical details of the passage, but understanding the transitions in the passage, understanding what the author wants to communicate to a non to someone who's non-technical and unaware of the subject matter in the passage. In the end, or the essence of this is you should be able to figure out what's the author's opinion about that passage once you go through the passage in the first go itself. Okay. So how will we do that? One of the first things that we want to do is we want to make sure that you know how to read the passage. A lot of people believe, and in fact, someone wrote an email to me saying you can't ace GMAT RC in 10 days. You can't get to that 90th percentile because you've got to be a voracious reader to ace GMAT RC. What I'm going to demonstrate today to you guys is that when it comes to acing GMAT RC, yes, being a voracious reader helps to a certain degree. You can probably get to a 60th, 70th percentile fairly easily. But people who get to a 90th percentile, they are those who actually follow reading strategies, who are careful about GMAT RC, regardless of whether they are a voracious reader or an avid reader. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start with very small passages because we're going to really say, hey, even in small passages, there's so much juice that you can extract that if you and which, by the way, your avid readers are unable to extract if they don't use these reading strategies. Fundamentally, there's a way you need to read a GMAT RC passage. It's very different from reading a book or reading a novel, reading a non-technical book or a non-business book. And I want to make sure that you know what that manner is, and you kind of understand that's a very learnable manner when it comes to reading that passage. Okay. Then we're going to really say, once you've gotten most out of the passage, I want to demonstrate that there's a way to answering questions. How do you leverage that information to answer questions? And this is kind of where the conceptual aspect of RC comes in. When you look at the main point, inference, detail questions. So we're going to look at main point and inference questions, and then we're going to do a full passage where we'll do detailed questions as well. And again, to get the most out of passage, it's not just about getting immersed, it's also about applying these reading strategies and the question-specific strategies. This is where all of this comes together. But one thing that I want to make sure that you kind of get when it comes to acing GMAT RC is that you need to have the right attitude to ace GMAT RC. Let me ask this, and be very frank over here. How many of you hate RC? How many of you really look at an RC and say, why the hell is this even there? How many of you hate RC? Nope, yes, no. You do sometimes, no. All right, good. I don't have a lot of yeses, but the prerequisite to acing GMAT RC is essentially having an attitude to love RC, even if it's about humanities, even if it's about history. And one of the things that you'd learn in business is knowing history can be a huge advantage, not the historical facts, but the principles behind why those facts happen. So as you kind of get into a B school, you learn to love, you learn to draw inferences from historical facts. So the first thing which I think really, really important before all of these strategies come in is that to have that attitude. Say, I love this thing that's going to come there. There is something useful out there, and I'm going to pay my full attention to it. I'm going to make sure that whatever I read, I'm going to visualize. I'm going to see. I'm going to try and read it in a manner that, as if I can see it happening in front of me. That's what the word visualize means. Okay. And frankly, one of the reasons many of you are doing an MBA is because how many of your career changes over here? How many of you are looking to change your career? Yes, many of you are. And one of the reasons why you're doing an MBA is because you want to do different things. Okay, maybe you love what you currently do, but the reason for doing an MBA is to really transition into something different. And then as you transition into something different, the same attitude would help you. Okay. The second thing that I want to make sure that you do is apply reading strategies. So change how you go about reading. And I'm not really saying change this a whole lot. Be a more careful reader. And we're going to talk about those reading strategies. How many of you try to to what I call as speed read when you're reading a passage, and read quickly. Okay. How many? Who else? Many a times. I want you to change that. I want you to slow down. Okay. Speed reading does not help on GMAT RC. Speeding kills everywhere. All right. Speeding causes you or makes you take longer, which kind of is it might seem counter to what you think is the case, but if you speed on RC, you're going to take way longer to get to the right answer. So first, have the right attitude. Number two, change how you go about reading a passage. Slow down while reading, because that's the only way you're going to visualize. And as you slow down, I want to make sure that you understand the sentence structure. GMAT RCs often have long sentences. Break that sentence down. Understand what the sentence is saying. Understand why that sentence is there. One of my holy grail for our students is to make sure they read RC in a manner that they don't come back to the passage. Okay. The second thing that I want you to do when it comes to changing how you read is, a lot of people just read through the passage without wondering what's happening. I want to make sure you become an active reader where you identify keywords and you predict what the author is going to say next. Again, being an active reader is predicting that, because every GMAT RC has a ton of keywords, and those keywords can tell you where the author is going to go even before you read that. The benefit of that is that again, when you read that, you naturally become faster. Again, you don't read quickly, but you naturally become faster, and you visualize a lot faster. Okay. And then once you're done with a certain piece of text, most likely a paragraph or even sooner, I want you to take time off, take a couple of breaths, summarize what you just read, and then think about, hey, what the author could be saying next, and then read the next part. This is what I want you to kind of inculcate as you go through RC today. Okay. Again, we talked about being slow. So those are two things. We're going to talk about the third thing or so later on. But let's just kind of start with our first question. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to read this question. 60 seconds to read this question. So I think this is about 80 words or so. I'm going to mute myself. Let's just go there. Yeah, it's about 47 words. So take notes. Do not rely on memory. Read slowly, and then I'm going to give you one question. I'm going to keep the passage with it, but read slowly. So 1 minute. Take your time. You can select, once you've read and taken notes, you can select yes. All right. I have pretty much everyone who's there who's saying that they're done with it. That's good. Did you guys take notes? Did you guys take notes? Yes. All right. 93% of you took notes. Okay. So this means you don't need to see the passage as I give you the poll question. Does it mean that you've done enough? All right. So I'm going to give you the poll question. If you guys need the passage, let me know. Okay. So here is the poll question over here. I'm going to show you the question here. So can you guys do still solving? I want about 20 of you to say still solving before I show the question stem to you. So that way, when you choose another option, I know you guys are done. 18, 17, 18, 19, 20. Good. We remove broadcast results. Here is the question stem. All right, pretty much everyone's done. Get those answers in 3, 2, and 1. In the poll, I'm going to broadcast the results. This is how you guys polled. 43% of you chose choice D, which was really popular. Choice C, 30%. Choice B, about 19%. And pretty much, no one chose choice A. There's just a couple of people who chose choice A. Okay, so I also, had the passage here at the bottom overall. So let's clear all answers. So let's see what's going on over here. Okay, so one of the first things that you really see is you see this bordering on one extreme. What does this mean over here? Bordering on one extreme. Just make sure. What does this mean? One definition of ethnocentrism considers it a blah, 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 blah. What does bordering on one extreme mean? And how many of you kind of focus on bordering on one extreme? Okay, what does it mean? It's an extreme definition. The author is also critiquing that. Yes, the definition it's an exaggerated definition. So what the author is saying is, hey, one exaggerated definition of EC considers it a schismatic in-group out-group differentiation. Okay, so my question to you, yes, no poll. Is this definition, is this the author's definition? No. So what is the author doing here? The moment you look at this and say bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism or EC, what's the first inference that you draw? The author is presenting a view here. He's presenting an extreme view, and he's just merely communicating information, right? He's presenting a view. When you read the passage, just a yes, no poll. Did everyone read that passage with this thing? The moment you read bordering on one extreme, did everyone understand, hey, the author, this is not author's view, this is someone else's view? Again, be very honest with yourself. How many of you really identified it right away when you said bordering on the extreme, one definition of EC? About 23% of you did that. When it comes to GMAT RC, really important distinction as to when the author is presenting information, what is his opinion on it? Okay, really, really important. Again, first learning, let's put this in place. And you'd only get this if you read slowly, not if you read quickly. Okay. All right, now can you really see the author's presenting his view bordering on the extreme, one definition? He's presenting his view on that definition. And essentially it's saying it's an exaggerated view of EC. And this view considers EC as some form of differentiation in which love for your own people, in which In-group, out-group, considered as schismatic. Schismatic is a complex word, so I'm not going to consider it. Some sort of a in-group, out-group differentiation in which a few things are related, linked. You see the word correlate over here. In this case, correlation means linked or related. Okay, in which internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, and loyalty and devotion to the in-group are correlated with the state of hostility toward out-groups. Um, okay, so some sort of a differentiation. I'm not going to be worried about a lot of this detail over here as to what it means and so on and so forth. But what I'm going to be focused on at a very high, at the crux of it is in love for your own people that's linked with hatreds towards towards the outgroup. Okay, um, and 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 uh, and and this is an exaggerated definition over here. Okay, so overall, and this outgroup are perceived as subhuman, which means below human, and or incorporation of evil. Okay, so if I were to just summarize what happened in this passage, the author gives one definition of EC. There's the according to the author, that's an exaggerated definition, and in this definition, two things are related to one another: love for your own people and hatred for the people outside. Okay, just very quickly, select out of these three items, 1, 2, and 3, which one of you were you not able to extract from the passage? And you can, this is a multiple response question, so you can really say, hey, I could not extract um, give that hey, it was an exaggerated definition, the author considered it to be exaggerated. Or you could say, I could not understand, hey, that it's one of the many definitions that are possible. I could not understand these things were linked to one another. Okay, so, and again, you can choose 1 and 2, you can choose 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, let me broadcast results. This is how you guys polled. You can see many of you couldn't understand number 1. The most common thing that people couldn't understand is, hey, the exaggerated definition. Some of you couldn't even understand 3. And this is really important. Why? Because, when you read a passage and other people read the same passage, what could you extract versus what could others extract? That distinction is important because that gives you that personalized feedback as to what you need to work on. Now, just if you were to read a similar passage again, what is the one change that you're going to do when you read that a similar passage again, so that you don't ignore these facts? What's that one change that you're going to do to make sure that you don't ignore bordering on the extreme? Try and visualize. Read slower. Differentiates author's view from others' opinion. Good. Skip complex words. Yes. All right. So with that, thank you. That's really, really good. And again, as I say, the more you participate, you can really see this here. By the way, the person who said increase vocab, which vocab word did you need here? Is there a difficult vocab word in this passage that's relevant? Is there anything that's difficult that's relevant? No. Well, yes, schismatic, yes, it's an uncommon word. There are a lot of other complex words, but are they relevant to what we are talking about? No, not yet. And that's something which you have to understand. There may be some complex words. Most of them will either be something where you'd be able to infer their meaning, or B, they won't be relevant to the passage, to the questions that would come in. Okay. So what's the main idea of the passage? Let's kind of look at this here. Let's bring back our poll question. This is how you guys polled. A couple of people chose choice A. Choice A is to criticize a concept that encourages hostility towards people not belonging to the same group. First of all, does the author criticize EC? Does he say EC is bad? Does the author criticize EC? Absolutely not. So that's why choice A is wrong. Okay, and then does EC encourage hostility? Does it anywhere in the passage do we say that EC encourages hostility? No, it says this is what EC is. It doesn't mean it encourages hostility. Those things are related, but one doesn't lead to another, or one doesn't cause another or amplify another. Choice B, 10 of you chose choice B. Okay. Now, people who chose choice A, you've got to understand what does it mean to criticize criticize something. Similarly, people who chose choice B should know what it means to evaluate. Evaluate means, presenting the pros and cons of something. Okay. Does the author present pros and cons of EC? No. Does the author present the various features of EC? He presents some features, but it's as a part of the definition. Again, people who chose choice B, can you see why choice B is wrong? Can you guys see why choice B is wrong? There are 10 of you. What are you guys going to do to make sure you don't make the same mistake? The 10 of you, what are you going to do to make sure you avoid making the same mistake? Because we will. Well, not read slowly. Also visualize this answer choice as to why, what does evaluate mean? And then go back and ask. Okay. Let's look at choice C. 14 of you chose choice C. Choice C is wrong. These are, or 16 of you chose choice C. 30% of the participating group chose choice C. Choice C says to define the concept of EC. Is this author's definition here? In EC? No, it's not. So the author doesn't define this. Now, does EC lead to hierarchy among groups? Is there a cause and effect over there? No. It's wrong on both counts. Okay, which brings us to our correct answer, to introduce the concept of EC. Now, prior to reading the passage, did you have any clue about EC? No. So the author, did he introduce the concept of EC to me? Yes, absolutely, he did that. Did he present a view on that introduction? And yes, it's an extreme view. So the author says bordering on one extreme. So the author did present a view on it. So this is correct. This is correct, as is this. And about the biggest group, about 23 of you, um, essentially marked choice D as the correct answer, and you guys are correct. Okay. So again, let's kind of understand. This was a simple question, simple passage, not a lot of information, a lot of juice, but not a lot of information. And why is it that we still made mistakes over here? My understanding is that there is a comparison between in-group and out-group. How do you select an option based on this? No, you're looking for a certain answer because you read something. What you did not understand is the author in this passage, again, was presenting one definition and an extreme definition of EC. Okay. I thought the author didn't present views on EC. Yes, the author did not present views on EC. What did the author present views on? What did the author present his view on? The definition, yes, bordering on an extreme. One definition of easy. Okay. So coming back to what you were saying, you were looking for an answer. When you were looking for an answer, you saw, and the reason why a lot of people look for the answer that you were looking for, and I'm sure it's not just you, other people did that too. Let me just bring the passage back once again. So a lot of people look at this and say, hey, there's just so much detail over here. Okay, there's just so much detail in this part. So the answer must be related to this part. How many of you did that? And I'm going to look at this over here. Again, please, guys, questions in the Q&A pod, because the short answer pod, so copy your question if it's there and put it in the Q&A pod, because I clear the short answer pod regularly. Okay. Put those questions here. There's a reason why Harsha is here. Okay. How many people looked at this part and say, the answer has to have something about this over here? How many of you did that while looking for the answer? Not me. Okay. Some yes did that. Yeah. When you did it, you kind of didn't understand the crux of it, that the author is presenting. Okay. And is this, what the author is presenting is one definition, and all of this part in blue is what this definition says. How many of you read it in this particular manner? Let me just say this. The way you should read this is, just bring it in black over here. What? These are the three things. This is the three thing. These are the three things that you should get out of this. The author is presenting one definition. Okay. How many of you read it this way? I went to the details. Yes, not me. Now, can you really see this is how you should have read it? Can you see that? That's okay. Good. Thank you. Now, when you put your question in the Q&A pod, that really helps. Muskan says, um, uh, doesn't subhuman point to hierarchy? Okay. Why is this choice wrong? First of all, let's kind of look at this, Muskan. Great question. And if you put it in the Q&A pod, you get an answer on it. So Muskan, and I'm going to again clear the short answer pod here. Let's kind of look at just one aspect of it, which leads to hierarchy. Where in the passage does the author say that EC leads to hierarchy? Muskan, again, does the author, you can put, no, does it lead to hierarchy? Something leading to hierarchy. What does that mean? No, it doesn't say anywhere that it leads to hierarchy. Okay. Correlated with? Does it mean that rising revenues lead to higher stock prices? No, nowhere. As per the information that's given to you, you can't infer that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, is that the main idea of the passage? No. But the author did not introduce the concept of EC. What does introducing something mean? Do you know more about EC after reading the passage than you did before? Yes, no? Yes, then that's introducing. When someone introduces you to someone else, what is that? That person knows your name. That's introduction. Okay. Again, fundamentally, what does this tell you for people who are confused over here? What does this tell you? What's the reason why you guys are making mistakes? You don't know the meaning of certain words. You don't know what evaluate means. You don't know what criticize means. You don't know how to read a passage. Now, how are you guys preparing for RC today? How many of you are just practicing RC passages and really just saying, as I practice more, I'm going to learn more? How many of you are doing that? Okay. One of the worst ways to prepare for anything, not just RC, for anything. What should be the right way to prepare for RC? Build those skills. Understand what these terms actually mean first. Learn how to read. Read small passages, then medium sized, then big passages. Just case in point over here. Okay. Why did you make mistakes? Did not read the passage properly. A lot of people don't visualize what the author is saying. A lot of people don't even know what's the right way to read the passage. They get so lost in the details. Okay. And this is where you read and visualize, you leverage keywords. We didn't see a lot of keywords there. There were a couple of keywords there, but we're going to see, as we look at an official passage, we're going to see a ton of keywords here. The second piece, did not read the answer choice in isolation. Whenever you see this, even before you really say, is this the correct answer? Understand, what does evaluate mean? What does criticize mean? What does leads to mean? Understand what that answer choice is saying, and then ask yourself, is this what the passage is saying? Really, really important. Okay. The third piece, did not read the question stem. This is the main idea question. So even if the passage was saying that, is that the main idea of the passage? Ask yourself this question. Okay. As we solve a larger passage later on, you're going to see reading the question stem, understanding what the question stem is saying is really important. If you do not do that, you falter, despite doing a great job reading a passage. So when it comes to acing GMAT RC, doing all three is really important. Building the core skill so that you know how to read the passage properly. Building the core skill so that you know how to read the answer choices properly. Building the good habits so that you know how to read the answer choice, that you first read the answer choice in isolation before asking, is this the right answer choice? And in reading the question stem and understanding what the question is asking. Those are good habits. And then so when it comes to GMAT RC, there are core skills and there are good habits. And you've got to build both to ace GMAT RC. By brute force practice, you will, very few people who are already at that 70th percentile in the beginning get to 90th percentile. People who are at the 30th 40th percentile do not get to 90th percentile with brute force reading. How to build that skill if not by practicing? Focus on dedicated learning activities that lead to building that skill. How does anyone play any sport here? Any sport? Badminton, squash, racquetball? Which one? Football, chess. Okay. Badminton, really good. Anyone at a pro level in any of these? Just when I say play a sport at a pro level. Okay. Running semi-pro. Okay. So swimming semi-pro. When you get to a pro level, what percentage to get to a pro level? First of all, getting to a pro level means achieving a 70th 75th percentile ability. But before you get to a pro level, do you just blindly actively do that activity, or do you build on, do specific conditioning and strengthening exercises and focus on building your technique so that you can even do the activity properly? What do you do? If you are running, do you just run, or do you build your strength? Do you and build your technique? If you're learning to play soccer, do you build the core concepts of essentially how do you build a forward? That's the same thing in RC. There's no different. That's the same thing in SC. That's the same thing in quant as well. You've got to build that technique. I used to play cricket at a certain level about 14 years back. None of the things that I would do, I wouldn't just go and play matches. 70% of my time was spent on building the various shots. And again, when I played, and I played in Europe where the ball swings a lot, and my thing really was, how can I make sure I minimize the distance between my pad and my bat so that the ball doesn't sneak through? How do I learn the ability to track the ball that's swinging and coming at about 75 miles an hour? How do I build that hand-eye coordination? Once you do that, your success on matches is automatic. So brute force practice doesn't work. Okay, again, you need to be completely immersed. Okay, and you need to read slowly, and you need to read with intent. What it means by reading with intent and reading slowly is you kind of, when you see long sentences, break them down, and you see keywords, pause and make sure why did the author choose to use that keyword? What is it trying to achieve here? And then summarize. And you're going to see the application of this fairly soon. Okay. One thing that I want to make sure you understand, and hopefully that just one simple example this was enough to help you understand that, is when it comes to acing GMAT RC, being a voracious reader helps only to a certain degree. Beyond that, it doesn't. You don't need to be an English pundit. But if you really, really are careful, it's very easy to ace GMAT RC. Okay, as long as you follow good habits. And the other piece, you don't need subject specific knowledge. We didn't really use the details of EC or any historical facts about it. GMAT RC passages are written to be very, very subject agnostic. Just trust the test maker when he does that. Okay, are you guys ready to try and see if you guys can do a better job? And again, the next question is more challenging. So if you don't do a better job, that's okay. But are you ready to try and say, let's just do this? Okay. The next question is also supposed to be from the learning part. So just don't be disheartened if you don't do as good a job, because it's supposed to be the learning part. Let me hide this one and bring in the poll for question number 2. All right, still solving. I need to see that before I show the question. But 25 people say still solving before I show the question. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, I'm going to give you about a minute to read the passage. Again, I'm going to have a yes no poll. Once you've read the passage, you can select yes. All right, I'm going to give you the poll, the question. You have the passage at the bottom as well. So here is your question. Good luck, guys. Okay, pretty much everyone's done. Get those answers in. 3, 2, and 1. Let me end the poll. I'm going to broadcast the results. Let me hide this. So this is how you guys did. Overall, you can see, but 4 people did not choose to respond. Again, if you are participating, choose an option, even if it's the wrong option. And that's okay. Just choose an option. That way, you get feedback on if you made a mistake, why you made a mistake. If you thought correctly, you get to pat your back. Okay. With that, let's kind of look at this over here. I want to give you a passage. The color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on moods of people. What can you infer from the statement above? What can you infer from the statement above? The color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on moods of people. Come on, guys. 35 responses. I have what, 20, 28, 29, 31. Let's get a few more. 32. What can you infer from this statement? Simple statement. 45. Let's see if we can get 50 responses here. 48 responses so far. 2 more. Cool. I think we have 50. Let me end the poll. Broadcast results. So 60% of you said some people regard color blue as soothing, but 27% say that color blue is soothing, and then another 14% say that both statements are true. Okay. Choice A, which is some people consider color blue as soothing, is the correct option. Remember this, when it comes to the inference, inference means what is it that the author would agree with. All right. And when you think about this statement, the color blue is considered to have a soothing effect. What it means is that the author here is merely communicating information. What the author is saying is there's someone who considers color blue to have a soothing effect. What the author is not saying is that I agree that color blue has a soothing effect. Okay. So what you can infer is this part. Some people regard color blue as soothing. People who chose either choice B or choice C. Do you guys agree with that? Can you understand this? The author is not saying the color blue is soothing. The author is saying is that someone says that I'm merely a communicator of information. If it turns out that the color blue is not soothing, don't blame me. Don't kill me. I'm not the culprit here. I'm just communicating what some people are saying. Clear with the 40%. I like to see a bit more participation here. This is a core aspect of inference. Yeah, some includes one, RK. RK says, but how can we say some? Some includes one. Some means 1 to 100. It excludes 0. Some is at least 1. Another core skill. How many of your e-GMAT students over here? How many of your e-GMAT students? Okay. How many of you have done the e-GMAT CR course? How many of you have done the e-GMAT CR course? Okay. What's one of the first files in the inference module in the CR course that we talk about? It's what does some mean? What does most mean? Foundational skills, really important. It is, you spend what, about 40 minutes on just the visualizing the sum and most. The reason we do that is because these are foundational skills, not just in CR but also in RC. Okay. Someone is asking, how do you learn this? Again, don't just blindly practice. Focus on building core skills. On the other hand, if the author said the color blue has a soothing effect on people, that's when we can infer is that the color blue is soothing. Why? Because the author is saying I am telling you the color blue has a soothing effect on moods of people. In that case, this is a valid inference. Can you see the difference over here? This was the first one. This is the second para. That's when you can infer. Complex passages are no different than this. Okay. Again, what is inference? What the author believes to be 100% true. All right. How does it apply to this? Ethnocentrism and its canonical variants are deemed to be intimately connected with xenophobia. Okay. What does deemed to be mean? What does the word deemed to be mean? Supposed to be, considered to be, yes. Okay. So what the author is saying is EC and its variants are considered to be closely connected. Does the author think they are closely connected? Does the author think? No. He's a mere communicator of information. The author doesn't believe that. Okay. Can everyone see that? The author is saying EC and its variants are deemed to be intimately connected with xenophobia. Now, what is xenophobia? A complex attitude, uh, uh, system cum sentiment structure involving dislike for the stranger or the alien and everything that the stranger or alien represents. This part over here, from here to here, who has said this? Who said that? A complex attitude cum sentiment structure involving. That's the author. The author is saying this is what I'm telling you. Okay, this is no different than this particular statement. Let's just bring in notes here and let's just bring this piece here. Okay, a social media network for short investments or short messages. Who is saying that? Twitter, a social media network for short investments. Who is saying the stuff in bold? It's the author is saying this is what it is, and that that social media network is considered. This is not what I am saying. Someone else considered this to be a bad investment. Okay, so the stuff in black. Sorry, I should put it in black. Black is author and blue. Can you see this over here? Can everyone see this? Blue is someone else. The stuff in black is this. Again, remember I said understand sentence structures. We talked about that in SC. Same application here. And the same application in CR as well. That's why those foundational skills are really important. Okay. XP is about hatred for aliens. All right. And then some socio-cultural anthropologists even, what is the use of even? Even is a keyword over here. What does even mean? On top of that, okay. Even is used as an emphasis. To such extent. It's more extreme. Yes, to such extent. Harsha, if you can, yeah. Even is used for emphasis. If you can present the note for even, that would be great. Yes. Look at this. Michael Jordan was the most dominant player. Some analysts even consider him to be the most dominant player of all time. Okay, so here we're talking about his time and then of all time. Even means they're going to that extreme, the extent of dominance. GDP is an increasingly poor measure of prosperity. It is not even a reliable gauge. Okay, and even is used to really again talk about the how less reliable it is. So that extreme. Okay, so understand what it means. Why does the author use the word even? Okay, could the author have written this sentence without even? Some sociocultural anthropologists considered xenophobia and EC to be opposite sides of the same coin. Even if even weren't there, right, it would have still been okay. So why did the author choose to use the word even here? Why do you think the author chose to use the word even? Oh yes, of course, it's the view of this, but what the author wants to emphasize is that some these anthropologists take it to such an extreme. Prior to this, what we were really saying is that they were intimately connected. This was the keyword here. This group said they are intimately connected. But then it's saying there is this other group, number 2, that think the connection is so extreme that they consider these to be the opposite sides of the same coin. It's that next level of intimate connection. Can you guys see that? How the author is building his chain of thought? Yes? Okay, good. If you say no, please put the question in the Q&A pod. Why is it that you can't see that? But is another keyword, which means I'm going to go against what was said before, a few voices of caution that this need not be the case. Of course, the moment I see but I say I'm going to go against it. And of course, as I read, I can see this is there. To show disapproval? No, it's not about disapproval. Does the author disapprove this? Does the author disapprove this characterization? No, there's nothing over there. But all the author is saying is giving you information. Some sociocultural anthropologists even consider, say, go to this extreme that they do this. Whether I agree with it, I as an author agree with this or not, is completely out of the picture. I am not presenting my view as an author on it. Okay, but then there are other people who are presenting a view and says, hey, this need not be the case. Okay, so there are 3 independent entities presented in here. EC and its variants are deemed to be, that's entity 1. Then this is entity 2. And then this is entity 3 over here. Some sociocultural anthropologists entity 2, a few voices are entity 3. Can you see this? Now can you see this? Okay. So what does the author really say? The author defines this new term XP, right? When we really say this part over here, this is what the author defines. This is the author's definition. Okay. And then the author says some consider EC and XP to be closely connected. Some experts think that they are same sides of the same coin. This is another group of experts. And some other experts think that, that may not be the case. That's what the author is saying through this passage. Now, what's a correct inference? Correct inference always comes from the author's standpoint. It's something that the author would 100% agree with. Okay. If the author has not given his opinion on something, it cannot be the correct inference. Remember this. The author must agree with this, and or the inference could be could be in line with the facts and the argument. Why? Because facts are, indisputable to begin with. Okay. So let's kind of look at this. Xenophobia, XP and EC are different facets of the same concept. Okay. Is this the author's view? Is this the author's view? No. Does the author agree or disagree with that view? Absolutely not. Okay. 8 of you chose choice A. Can you really see why choice A is wrong? Those 8. And then can you tell me how are you going to avoid falling in this trap? How is it that you're going to avoid falling in this trap? By trying to understand who said what. Absolutely, that's wonderful. Good. Let's look at choice B. The canonical variants of XEC are closely connected to this. Okay. Is this the author's view? No, this is the deemed view. 44% of you chose this, I think. If I remember correctly, yes, 44% chose this. Okay. What's your learning over here? How are you going to avoid this? Avoid making that mistake. Folks who chose choice B. No one chose choice B, even though it was the most popular choice? Yes, to keep the author's view. It's the same learning, same reason why people made a mistake. Other people, what happened? XP and EC are not connected to each other. Very few people did that. XP could cause EC. One person did that. There's no cause and effect here. The correct answer over here is choice E. Xenophobia entails dislike towards the strange. This is the definition of XP. This is what the author presents: a complex attitude, come sentiment structure, blah, 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 over here. And this is my correct answer. Okay, again, what did we learn? What did we learn so far? Because we are now going to go into the main part of it, where we're going to do a full length passage, where I think you guys will do much better, because uh, you've been baptized by fire. So what have we learned so far? What are we going to do in that big passage that we're going to read right away? What are we going to do? Read slowly, see the author's view, catch author's view, think and visualize, understand who is saying what. Yes. Understand that inference always comes from the author. Yes. Perfect. Okay. Now, I think you guys will be 100% immersed in the passage based on this, but make sure you do what you're doing. Don't read answer choice in isolation. Read answer choices in isolation. Don't really ask the question right away, is this the correct choice or not? First, read the answer choice, visualize it. Once you know, okay, I understand what this answer choice is saying, then ask yourself, is this the correct answer? Really important. Okay. Very, very important. And to do this, to read the passage slowly, make connections actively. Extremely important. Why did the author say this? Why did the author use the word even? Okay. How does line 2 connect to line 1? When you see keywords, how many categories of keywords do you think exist in GMAT RC? How many categories exist? How many categories of keywords do you think exist? 2 to 3, okay. Do you know what those categories are? Does anyone know what those categories are? No? Okay. No, those are question types. Those are not keywords. Detail and inference are question types. For and against, okay, good. Those are good things. Here are some of the categories. When you want to change the line of thought, on one hand, on the other hand, rather, instead, in contrast, alternatively, granted, You won't think granted is used as a contrast. Despite, but, all of these change the line of thought. Have you guys seen these categories being used in changing line of thought? Yeah, everyone has seen that. Why is it that did you ever see it characterized this way? So many keywords? Do you think if you knew this, you knew the usage of each of these keywords automatically in your brain, it would help you read better? It'll help you comprehend the transitions better, right? Cause and effect relationships. Subsequently, therefore, as a result of, hence, consequently, thus. Continuing the same line of thought. Also, moreover, in addition to, as well as. So, in the core skill focused approach, you learn these things up front before you delve into passages so that you can read passages better. There's a formal structure to this, very similar to how there's a structure to learning any sport if you want to excel in that. Okay. It's really important you understand how you want to learn things. Okay. Now, how do you predict using keywords? What's going to happen? Work from home has improved employee productivity, however. Okay. What do you think will logically follow this, however? Okay. What would be an example of logically follow? Yeah, a negative piece. However, it leads to fewer innovations, a demerit of it. The moment if your brain's trained to do this, you will automatically say this is going to be a demerit of work from home. And then when you read this, you already are reading it with that lens. Okay. However, it leads to fewer innovations. However, it leads to fewer trust in executives. However, it leads to fewer people not believing in the company as much. However, it leads to lesser team spirit. Okay, really important to know these keywords. Okay, and then this piece: don't ever let a passage overwhelm your brain. The moment you let a passage overwhelm your brain, two things would happen. One, either it's game over, or B, you have to go back 3 lines and start reading again. Has this happened to anyone? You let the passage overwhelm your brain and you say, and then you had to go back, or you had a really low accuracy. Okay, don't let that happen. A lot of people say I face timing struggles. The reason they face timing struggles is because they don't do this, and they let the passage overwhelm their brain. On the other hand, if you read slowly, focus on keywords, break down big sentences, your initial read may take longer. Finishing that passage will not take longer. Your accuracy will be much higher. How many of you are hearing this for the first time? Read slowly, focus on keywords, pause, make notes, all of this together. The list of keywords. How many of you are hearing it? Not the first time, okay? For the first time, a lot of you are. Does it seem logical, though, to do this? Because the thing is called reading comprehension. It's not speed reading. Okay. All right, so I'm now going to give you a full length passage. This one, if you're applying all of this, will seem a lot easier. Okay, so again, the same piece here. I'm going to clear all answers, and we're going to have a poll. And once you're done reading, select yes. Okay, why don't 20 of you select no? I think, why don't we do that? That way I know when you guys are done reading, you've toggled your answer. 18, 19, 20. One more. All right, good. Here is the passage. And if you prefer to read the passage in the notes pane, then I can also give you the passage in notes over here. Just 1 second. Why don't you read it just like that? All right, guys, last 60 seconds. Get those. Read the passage. Five, four, three, two, and one. Let me hide this. Thank you. So here is the passage. And if you guys need to refer to this at all, you guys can refer to this over here. going to reduce this and forgive me. So you'll have to scroll down, up and down, but I think it's better than not having it. And with that, I'm going to give you questions. Okay. Let's get a few people to say still solving before I show question number 1. 20 people to say still solving. All right, good. Remove broadcast results. I'm going to actually reduce this because now we're going to have the question, and that gives me, I think, just a bit more space to show the passage properly over here at the bottom. So we have a bit more real estate here. All right, good. Here is your first question. Okay, last 15 seconds. Get those answers in. 80% of the class is done. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You guys did really well on this one. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Not going to broadcast results. I'm going to show you Q2. We'll do all questions together. So still solving. 20 people Q2. 20 people Q2. You haven't seen question 2. Don't mark your answers for question 2. Remove broadcast result. Here's question 2. Right, pretty much everyone's done. Get those answers in. 3, 2, and 1. You guys did pretty okay on this one too. That's good, and especially those guys who got done earlier. 75% of people in the first 45 seconds who marked their answers got the answer right. Let's go. Still solving again on this one. 20 people. 3, 2, and 1. Let's remove broadcast results. Here is question number 3 for you. You should be able to see question 3 now. All right, guys, 80% of the class is done. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come on, everyone, do it. Choose it. Choose an option. Okay, you guys did really well on this one too. Let's go question number 4. Still solving. Let me enable broadcast results. 20 people still solving. Good. Here is question 4. All right, 88% of you are done. Get those answers in. 3, 2, and 1. You guys are killing it in the last 2 questions. That is good. Question 5. Let's get this still solving. Good. Here is question number 5. All right, almost 80% of the class was done. Get those answers in. Three, two, and one. Let me end the poll. This was the only question on which many of you stumbled. But other than that, I think there was another question where you guys stumbled. But other than that, you guys did well on the other three questions. Let me just bring in my short answer pod here. Was this fun? Solving these questions? Was it fun? Let me hide this. Bring back the Q&A pod so that you guys have a place for your questions. Yes, it was fun. Good. I'm glad. I want the same attitude everywhere. Okay. Just learning needs to be fun. All right. So let's kind of look at this over here. So just track how many questions you answered correctly, but let's just kind of go about reading this passage the way we do. FNM, Frazier and Mosteller. Again, I'm Indian. I can't really pronounce these names. So I'm going to use FNM. Assert. So the author is saying some other people assert. These two scientists seem to assert. So it's not the author's view. Assert that medical research could be improved by, by a move towards larger, simpler trial um, of medical treatments. Okay, so the author is presenting. The first thing I do is I read, and the first line I always read in pause and say, what the hell is author doing here? Why did he even worry about this? And for me, my mental note is the author is presenting information uh, uh, or, or or an assertion by someone else, and the assertion is those guys say that hey, medical research can be improved if we do this change, if you go towards larger and simpler clinical trials. Currently, another keyword, this is my current practice, researchers collect far more background information than is strictly required for their trials. Again, I, I carry on and really say, okay, this is something that the author is saying. Um, how much more? Which is substantially more than hospitals collect. So the role of the two dashes is it just says how much more. Thereby, another keyword, the output of it is escalating cost of data collection, storage, and analysis. As you answer questions, you're going to really see the value of these keywords come in this case. So the current practice is researchers collect a lot of information, and that because of this practice of collecting a lot of information, there are higher costs. Although limiting information could increase the risks that researchers will overlook facts relevant to a study. So FNM contend that such a risk, never entirely eliminable for research, would still be small. So, according to FNM, that risk can never be completely eliminated, and it's fairly small. And then they really just FNM really say only on research on entirely new treatments or new and unexpected variables likely to arise. Okay, so it says hey, it's a small group of treatments and where this data collection according to FNM could be useful. When you look at summary, I say, hey, this is per FNM. Look at this part over here. It's an FNM assert medical research can be improved. Higher arrow up means improved by doing something. What is it? Larger and simpler trials. Collectively, we collect too much data that leads to increased costs. And there's a downside of collecting. There's a potential downside of collecting less data, but the downside it cannot be removed or eliminated, and it probably will materialize only. That risk is small and in very specific cases. So far, you guys so good with me? Everyone read it in more or less this similar fashion? Good. I expect you to do that. Okay, so if I were to summarize, it's essentially benefits of similar trial as per FNM. Those are explained. Okay. Then let's go to para 2. It says FNM propose, another proposal by FNM, it's not the author, that not only that researchers limit data collection on individual patients, so this is the continuing part, not only so collect fewer data points, but also there's a second piece of recommendation. Not only but also is also a keyword. Why? Because not only means this is what I said, what they said earlier, but also means it's another recommendation that researchers enroll more patients in the clinical trials. Okay, there's a second recommendation, and thereby What kind of a keyword is thereby? What kind of a keyword is this over here, thereby? No. Leading to something, yes. Resulting, yes. Effect, cause and effect, yes. Thank you. Really important. Thereby obtaining a more, as a result of obtaining of this, they obtain a more representative sample of a total of the total population with the disease under study. Okay, all right. So as a result of this, if the research enrolled more patients, and if they enroll more patients, the result of that would be that they'll obtain a more representative sample. Often is another keyword, which means many a times. Researchers restrict study participation to patients who have no ailments besides those studied. This is again by the author. A treatment judged successful under these ideal conditions can then be evaluated. Evaluated means figured out the pros and cons under normal conditions. So that's kind of what the current practice is. Okay, so proposal, we talked about the collecting less less data. The second proposal is to increase the size of the trial. Why? Because you get a more representative sample. The current practice is we kind of have an ideal set of patients first, and then there's a two-step trial. Then we treat these the same medication or the same therapies or the same treatment, as is called over here, is then judged in a second step under normal conditions. Okay, so this is again the benefits of a larger trial. That's something which is going to talk about. Then we are continuing the range of the same thought, broadening the range of trial participants. Again, FMN suggest, really important. The author really takes the time to mention it's by FNM, not by the author himself, will enable researchers to evaluate the treatment's efficacy for diverse patients under various conditions. So it'll allow them to do two things. One is to evaluate its efficacy for diverse set of patients, and then it'll help them evaluate its effectiveness for different patient subgroups. Okay, so the benefit of this is the benefits are further explained of this proposal. This is the second proposal, and then the author says kind of cites how those benefits would come in. For example, the value of, for example, means it's kind of illustrating the point before. It's continuing chain of thought through case studies or through data points. For example, the value of treatment of a progressive disease may vary according to patient's stage of disease. Okay, first example, patients' ages may also affect our treatment's efficacy. Now, one of the things that you really notice is there were portions of it where I kind of went in deep. There are other parts where I didn't really bother to go in deep. Why? Because if I understood the keywords, I know the role that they play. So when I know the role that they play, I don't really need to go deep into figuring out the role that they play, as long as I know the job that they're supposed to do. Okay. And that's the value of reading through the lens of keywords. Okay. Okay. So and one of the other things that you can infer is that if you kind of enroll larger patients groups, that two-step process may not be needed. Okay. So overall, when I look at the passage summary, so what the author is presenting is he's describing or he's presenting FNM's proposals to improve medical research. You can see the word improve over here. First proposal is a simpler trial, collect less data. Why? Because it will reduce cost. And he compares it to the current scenario. The second is to go for larger trial. The benefits are single step process. You'll get a more representative sample. You'll get more data about the efficacy of treatment. And again, he's comparing that to how it's done currently as well. You guys with me so far? Right? All right. So what's the main point? What's the main idea over here? Essentially, we are giving the author in this passage is explaining a proposal of two ways in which medical research can be improved, and this proposal is by an entity, a third party. He's just explaining what that proposal is. Okay, so that's kind of what I would really say. So let's look at this is a main point question, and let's see how you guys did over here. Passage 1, Q1. Choice D is the correct answer. 56% of you chose choice D. You can see the choice that you chose. Choice E was very popular, as was choice says A and C. So let's go through each one of them. Okay. Choice A says identifying two practices that may affect the accuracy of clinical trials. Accuracy means, hey, clinical trials will actually be a better predictor of how the treatment's going to function. Did we talk about accuracy here? Okay. Did we talk about accuracy? Now, is the purpose of the passage to identify them? No, not at all. Okay. So absolutely not. So the four people who chose this, and ask yourself, why did you choose this? When did you, first of all, when you read this answer choice, what did you understand from this answer choice? And then if your mistake, and then why did you choose this answer choice? So if your mistake was in understanding, fix that understanding. If your mistake was in mapping this understanding, if your understanding was correct, and if it was in mapping this to the correct answer, then that's the other piece that you need to fix. Again, really important, understand why you made a mistake. Okay, it was a mapping error. All right, good. I like the fact, remember, this is a very low risk environment. No one's judging you. In fact, I can't even see you guys, so no one's judging you, and that's kind of where I hope you're able to express yourself more fully over here in this environment. Okay. Describing the aspects of medical research that tend to drive up costs. No, yes, the author does do that in the first para. He talks about one aspect that does drive up cost, but not multiple, but it's only first para. Remember, a main idea should encompass the entire passage. That's the whole point of it. Choice C is very popular. Uh, uh, Choice C says evaluating an analysis of certain shortcomings of current medical research practices. What does the word evaluation mean? What does the word evaluation mean? Describing the pros and cons. Does the author describe the pros and cons of it? Number one. Number two, is that the main idea, to describe the pros and cons of current research practices? The answer is no for that. Okay. People who chose choice C, what are you going to do? Why did you make a mistake? Was the mistake in understanding the answer choice as to what this answer choice means, or was it in mapping to the passage? Where did you make a mistake? People who chose choice C. There's no C versus D. C is absolute. You have to reject C in isolation. And a lot of the times, you see people saying that, hey, you have to choose the best answer in GMAT SC, GMAT CR, GMAT RC, implying that the other option is kind of okay, but there's an option that's better than that. That is never the case on the GMAT. Any expert who tells you that doesn't know how the GMAT's designed. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when those experts say that you've got to choose the best answer, this is a close answer, but you've got to choose the best answer, what they're really saying is, hey, give yourself a pat on the back if you chose this answer, which is a close answer. No, this one is absolutely wrong. In the universe where there were no choice D, choice C would still not be correct. Okay. Choice D for delta is my correct option. Describing proposed changes. So there are proposed changes. It's not the author's changes. The author does describe what those changes are to the ways in which clinical trials are conducted. Okay. Yes, that's correct. Now, choice E, close answer. A lot of you chose that. Explaining how medical researchers have traditionally conducted clinical trials. When you read that, the first question you should have asked is, okay, the passage starts with F and M contend. So is that the main reason why the author wrote this passage, to explain how medical researchers have traditionally conducted this? Is that what it is? Then the next part, how such trials are likely to change. Do we know if they're likely to change like this? Are we aware of this? No. Again, on both counts, choice E is wrong. Okay. The intent of the author, the reason why the author wrote this passage, is to describe F&M's proposal. Okay. And not so much. How can we avoid trap answers in RC? How can you, so which answer choice did you choose? Let's first look at that, because that kind of shows why you made a mistake. If you chose E, then the question that you have to ask is explaining how medical researchers have traditionally conducted clinical trials. Okay. Visualize. Remember I said one of the skills is visualize? Did you guys remember? I said one of the skills is visualize. You remember? Yes, no, guys? Okay. If the author truly wanted to write a passage which was explaining how medical researchers traditionally conducted clinical trials, here is how he would write. Just change the font color. Clinical trial. This is how he would have written the passage had he wanted to talk about how the research is traditionally conducted. Had he, isn't that how I would write the passage if I'm the author? Yes, no? If I wanted to do this, explaining how medical, yes. Is that how the author has written the passage? On the other hand, what does the author start the passage with? FNM contend that, first line. That's how the author writes the passage. Okay. Then are likely to change. What does the word likely mean? Do you have any reason to believe that the trials will change like this? Does the passage give you any reason? No, the passage doesn't give you any reason. So if you made a mistake and you chose choice E, your first job is to figure out what is choice E saying. Visualize that choice, translate and visualize that choice to really say, hey, this choice is saying that the author has done is explained how in general trials have been conducted, and there's a greater than 50% chance that that these trials are likely to change in this manner. Does the passage do that? The answer is no. Can you see how when you translate and visualize what the choice is saying, rejecting it becomes a lot easier? Okay. So hopefully everyone who's chosen choice E can now understand why choice E is wrong. Okay. Let's look at question number 2. I had to read the passage twice so that I understand it. Is it recommended? Well, if you have, so you've got to understand the passage. So if that's what it took you this time, then that's what it is. It's a fact. The thing which is there is, how are you going to change your practice so that you don't have to read it twice? And the answer to that is, again, going to sound like a broken record. Slow down, make notes, follow keywords, break sentence into its components. Your traditional habit is to go really, really fast. Okay, let's look at how you guys did over here. Question number 2. You guys did pretty well too. Option A was the correct option, and D and E um, are also popular options. I'm going to really look at this. So question 2 says, which of the following can be inferred from the passage about a study or the category of patients often researchers restrict study participations to? Okay. So let's kind of go. What can we infer about these studies? So one of the things which is there we said is, hey, we only look at ideal people here, and then we, as a second step, if the study is successful among those ideal folks, then we broaden the range of participants. Okay, so one of the inferences that you can really draw from this is that the results are limited to only those ideal set of patients in this case, okay, and not normal patients. Here is the passage. Often researchers restrict study participations to patients who have ailments. So this is the line. So but a treatment judged successful under these ideal conditions can then be evaluated. You've got to do a two-step, which means the even though it's successful here, the results are limited. Okay, which is what choice A says. Very few people chose choice B. I'm not going to go towards choice B. Choice C says it would be the best possible way to sample the total population. No. Best means there's no better way than this. There's nowhere in the passage do we say that it would be the best possible way. Okay. It would allow researchers to limit information collection without increasing the risk. We talk about this in first para, which is the first recommendation. This question talks about the second recommendation, where data collection is not discussed. People who chose choice D, why was this confusing? Why did you connect the first para to the second para? People who chose choice D, D for Delta. Why did he connect first? Memory trap. Don't take notes. Understand. Make linkages. But don't link everything, things that you're not supposed to link. What happens when you link everything? It's a short circuit. You don't want that. All right. Question 2. Misunderstood question. Remember, I said the third thing. Some of you will read the passage properly, read the answer choice properly, but will not read the question. Will not stop and pause and say, "What the hell is the question asking?" No, it's not linked. Let's bring the first para. Let me just bring my notes pod here and my passage 1 P3. Yes, here is my paragraph. Yes, referring to D. Limiting information collection. It's about saying collect less data. Is this limited to, is this connected to this? Let me just say, I'm going to bold this and this. Are these two talking about the same thing? Are these two talking about the same things? Yes, no? No, not at all. Is this a result of this? Can you infer this from this? No, absolutely not. Let me remove bolding over here because we want the passage to remain clean. Let's look at question 3. Question 3, again, same trap. You've got to read the question. It can be inferred from the passage that a study limited to patients like those mentioned in the lines, often research restricts study participations to patients who have no ailments beside those. Which are the following advantages? So what we're really saying is limiting the study to patients who have no other ailments. What's the benefit of that over the kind of study that FNM propose? It's kind of counterintuitive to really see what this question is asking, but if you pause, you'd really understand. So what it's saying is, what's the advantage of the current way of doing things? And this is a difficult inference question. Can you see that? It's not what the author, how the author, the flow that the author had said in the passage, but it's saying, hey, there is a traditional way. Can you infer what the advantage of that traditional way is? Can you see this? That's what this question is asking. Is everyone on board with this? Okay. Remember, you're talking about the benefit of this over this. Okay. So the current way is we only look at people who have this particular ailment and nothing else. It's done under ideal conditions. The proposed way is expand the conditions, get more participants in there. And one of the benefits is essentially uh, uh, is that you'd have to worry about fewer variables in there. You'd have to worry about fewer variables because you're testing under ideal conditions. The kind of analysis that you would need would not be as much. Okay. And the reason where a lot of people get confused is when you say, hey, the passage talks about the downside of it. How can we talk about the upside of it? You can. So here is another passage uh, where 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 you're talking about downside of something, and then you also have the same thing kind of an upside. Okay, so that's the same piece over here. So let's kind of look at the answer choices here. It would yield more data, and its findings would be more accurate. Accuracy is not mentioned. Data amount of data in this context is not mentioned. It would cost less in the long term. Again, we're not talking about cost in this case. It would limit the number of variables. Absolutely, yes. It would limit because you're only looking at ideal cases over here. It would help identify subgroups of patients with whom for secondary ailments, which may also be treatable. That's the FNM's proposal, the outcome of that, not the traditional way of doing things. If you chose this, you did not understand the question, or you mixed up the information over here. Experimental treatment, again, for an average patient, we are not talking about average patient experimental treatments here. Okay, so that's something that's their normal patients. Again, average patient means a normal patient, not special patients. For both these counts, this answer choice is wrong. How did you guys do? You guys did very, very well. 65% of you got this right. As I said, question 3, many of you did really well. This is how you guys polled on this. Again, choice D was the most confusing one. For those people who did that, you guys did not read the question properly. Question 4, let me just see how you guys polled for this one. Again, 65% of you got this right. You guys did really well here. Why does the author mention patients' ages may also affect? It's very simple. It's an example of the benefit. So most of you did question 4 right. Patients' ages may also, it's after, for example. So this is an example. So it says in the FNM's proposal, if you did the trial there where you enrolled a broader category of trial participants, you'd be able to really figure out multiple things about a treatment, and this is an example of those multiple things. So it's kind of talking about a benefit of enrolling a larger set of patients, which is essentially what choice D said. Choice C, which was the most popular incorrect choice, indicate why progressive diseases may require different treatments and at different stages. First of all, is that the reason why the author mentions this? Is that why the author mentioned this? Is that the job that this line is supposed to do? Let's go back over here. Is that the job that this line is supposed to do, to really say why one kind of disease requires a special treatment than the other? Yes, no? Okay. And again, the answer to that is no. Why? Because you'll see it starts with, for example, here. It's okay. Doubts in choice, question number 4. I'm not going to go through the other ones because not very many folks have chosen this. Again, understand why someone has written the structure of the passage. How many of you have gone through the structure of a passage as a concept? The purpose of each line as a concept. How many of you have done this? Those of you who are here. Partially me, okay. Do that. Go through those details. If you're an e-GMAT student, make sure you go through the purpose and structure. So again, remember, you're building those core skills. The e-GMAT course is built around building those core skills before you start practicing things. And we build those core skills and we make you practice on those core skills right then and there. So that was my question for e-GMAT students. Question 5 was the question which where many of you faltered, and it is a difficult question. It's an uber difficult question. This is how you guys polled. Let me share your results. You can see choice A is probably the most popular choice. 31% of you chose choice A. It is also the correct choice, but every other choice was there as well. This is what I call as a global inference question according to the passage, or we can call it a global detail question as well. According to the passage, the following describes the result of a way in which researchers generally conduct clinical trials. So result means an outcome over here. So it says, hey, we're talking about the traditional way. What's an outcome of that? Does everyone get this? This is what the question is asking. What's one of the outcomes of traditional ways? If you've read the passage, you'd really see there are two outcomes, one in each paragraph. One is the first outcome over here is that a lot of more data is collected, which leads to increase in cost. Okay, let's look at this piece over here in my notes pane. Para 3. The word thereby is an outcome over here. It leads to increase in cost. The second outcome is that that essentially the results are limited in the initial phase. It leads to a two-step process. A treatment judged successful over here. The increase in cost is not due to collection, but also due to storage and analysis. Won't be considered that. No. If you're collecting it, you have to store it. It's an outcome. Is all of that not an outcome of the traditional way? Is that not an outcome of the traditional way? Okay. If you shopped for more shirts than needed, more pants than needed, and more socks than needed, then shopping for more shirts than needed, does that not lead to wastage? Because than needed is with everything. Okay. So two outcomes. One is the more data means more cost, money wasted, because some of that is not used. And the second outcome is that the way they're done, the application is limited. Okay. Choice A is the correct. They expend resources on storage of information likely to be irrelevant during the study they are conducting. Okay, let's look at choice C. A lot of people worry about choice C. Let me actually go through every choice because everyone has said they sometimes compromise the accuracy of their findings by collecting and analyzing more information. Where did you get they compromise the accuracy of their findings? And then where did you get that that compromises because they use more information? Anywhere in the passage, does the author indicate that they compromise on the accuracy of their findings? Anywhere, does the author indicate that they cut corners? Researchers cut corners here. And that cutting corners or compromising happens because excessive data collection is there. And by the way, excessive data collection is in this case. People who chose choice B, B for boy, rejected choice A as it only considered part of the passage. Again, why? What's the problem with that? What is this question asking? Is this a main point question, or is this a detail or an inference question? What is this question? Main point or detail or inference? It's detail or inference, right? According to the passage, traditionally is detail. Does the detail have to encompass the entire passage? Absolutely not. What detail means is which of the answer choices is 100% certain. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at choice C. They avoid the risk of overlooking variables that might affect their findings, even though doing so raises the cost. All right. Let's kind of look at this piece over here. Such risk never really entirely eliminable from research. FNM say that such risk is never entirely eliminable from research. Is there anywhere in the passage that you can really say that they avoid the risk? Do you see anywhere in the passage? Yeah, but the author doesn't say that. But does the author say that they avoid the risk? Absolutely true. The author does not say this part over here. FNM say, but does the author anywhere say they avoid the risk? Yes, no. The person who said, but the author does not say that. You have the passage right here in front of you. If the author doesn't say that, then can you say that they avoid the risk? Choice C people, can you see that? Good. Again, can you please clarify the statement that you're saying over there? Here is my piece over here. Where do you see that they avoid the risk? Avoid the risk. What does the word avoid mean? Let me just, again, core skill. Let's just. Although I never do that, but let's say I do. So I avoided traffic on Highway 87. Did I go on Highway 87? Did I go? Yes, no. No. Avoid means that thing did not happen. The answer is no. What this means is risk is eliminated. Do they eliminate the risk by analyzing too much information? Do they do that as per the passage? Even if they reduce it, is it avoided? Is it? No, it isn't. Again, core skill, word. What does the word mean in that answer choice? Okay, let's look at choice D. Because they attempt to analyze too much information, they overlook facts. Where is this given over here? That there's a cause and effect over here. They analyze too much information, and as a result of this, they overlook facts. This part is actually not discussed at all in the passage. People who chose choice D, why did you choose this? Where did you see this in the passage? You can write it out. And while I talk about choice C, in order to approximate the condition of a typical medical treatment, they base their methods on information collection used by hospitals. Okay, again, methods, the way in which they collect information. That is not discussed at all. Do we talk about this, or do we talk about how much information is collected? We don't talk about how they collect information, the methods they use to do that. Okay. Because of all of this, choice E is also wrong in this case. Okay. So what did you learn from this exercise so far today? This is a 700 level passage. What did you learn from all of this? What's key to acing GMAT RC? Read the question properly. You added another uh, another checkpoint to your another point to your checklist. That's good. What else? What does it take to read to ace GMAT RC? What do you need to do if you want to achieve that 90th percentile? Visualize, yes. What else do you need to do? Visualize in addition to visualize. Break down the passage into smaller, understandable bits. Will reading quickly get you to 90th percentile? Link through keywords. No, it will not. Highlight keywords. Understand the question stem. Understand the answer choices. Yes. Okay. What is important is each one of you is unique. And each one of you has certain strengths, certain weaknesses. But what's common to each one of you is that each one of you needs to build those core skills. Whatever you've really said, the ability to visualize, the ability to make sure that you understand those keywords, um, the ability to read and apply those keywords, the ability to predict, those are core skills that you need. And you have to master those core skills over here. And then even when you master them, there are certain core skills because which don't come naturally to you, and those would be weaknesses. That's where data helps you, and that's where practicing on a platform such as Colradium helps you. Now, how many of you are worried about timing here? Still worried about timing? No, good. Someone is okay. Okay, another person is okay. I'm going to answer that question up front in about a minute. So here's what happens when you read quickly, or rather when you read slowly. GMAT RC passages. Again, please put the question in the Q&A pod because I'm going to clear the short answer pod. So I'm going to give you 3 seconds so that you can copy and paste the question there. 3, 2, and 1. All right. So how many words do you think are there in a GMAT RC passage? How many words? 250 is a short passage. So 250 to 410, that's kind of the range. Most GMAT RC passages are around the 325 mark or so. So for most passages, once you have mastered the reading strategies, and I kind of emphasize, once you mastered reading strategies, practicing passages is not the way to master reading strategies. Starting with building core skills is the way. You'd need about 3 minutes to read a 325 word passage. That's most passages over there. Okay. That's about 100 words a minute. Most humans read about 210 words a minute, which is non-technical stuff. So you have ample time to read the passage if you know how to read the passage. Most of you. GMAT RC is not about speed reading. And by the way, if you read the passage properly, the amount of time needed to answer questions would be less than a minute. 1 minute is an overkill. Again, this is when you build those skills. So overall, you'll need about 7 minutes per passage, but more than that, those 7 minutes would be very well spent because you'll achieve high accuracy through this. If you have those difficult passages, this is the question that I'm going to answer. If you have those difficult passages, you've got to slow down. And this advice is not just for not only for RC, but also for CR, also for quant, difficult looking equations. Slow down, don't read forward. Don't think when you read forward you're going to get a clue. No, it's not. Okay. The piece which is there is, if you find something is difficult, 9 out of 10 times you're reading for details versus reading for structure. Learn to read for structure and learn to kind of skim through the details, because if the author is not really presenting a transition, if there are no keywords around it, then most likely that's technical information that's not going to be tested. So for difficult passages, slow down further. You might take 4 minutes. Difficult passages usually are shorter. Okay, the beauty of that is, there to answer a question you're going to need about 45 seconds, because difficult passages, once you master the transitions, answering questions is a lot easier. So again, you're going to get to about 7 to 8 minutes or so. Okay. Now, if you go towards speed reading, you're going to read the passage in about 2 minutes. And then you're going to take about a minute and a half to a minute 45 answering questions. You're still going to take 8 minutes or longer, and you're still going to have lower accuracy. And you're going to have much more mental friction. How many of you have experienced this over here? This is what you do: read the passage in 2 minutes or less, then go to the question, come back, and you do that a lot, and it leads to a ton of mental friction. It still takes you that amount of time. Don't do that. Slow down. And as you slow down, for the first 10 passages, it might take you 12 minutes, but your accuracy will be high. And you'd see that time go progressively down. We've had students who actually challenge themselves to such a degree where they'd say, I am not going to reread the passage. I'm going to read the passage just one and answer all questions, because that's the habit that I want to build. And now I've interviewed people. By the way, how many of you are registered on our YouTube channel? Have subscribed to our YouTube channel? If you haven't, do that. It's the world's largest collection of GMAT success stories. We publish a couple of success stories every week. Okay. You take the entire universe of GMAT prep companies, you put our channel in one place, you put all of them together, they'd still amount to half as many success stories out there. And the reason I'm saying that is, those people don't say, hey, e-GMAT is great. They talk about how their journey is, what were their struggles, and how did they go about succeeding. And one of those guys once told me, said the way that person would prepare himself for GMAT RC is that he would blast the music loud, and then he would do an RC. And the idea was, I want to build my concentration to such a degree uh, that that uh, that essentially that even in such noisy environment I can focus. Anyone plays ping pong over here, or table tennis? Okay. If you train for table tennis, one of the best ways of training for backhands and forehands is training against a resistance band. Has anyone done that? Training against a resisting band, so that you can restrict your move. I mean, your movement becomes faster, because that's the piece over here. You want to make sure. Yes, this is similar to that. You're training against a resistance band with music blowing loud. Similar principles. That's the same thing that I do when I train for squash. How do you avoid rushing through a passage? Read slowly. Love it. I mean, build your love for it. Tell yourself, if I don't understand it, I'm not going to go forward, even if it takes me 30 minutes, and that's okay. Okay. And if these methods didn't work, we wouldn't account for 3 out of 5 700 plus scores. I'm not talking about reviews, 700 plus scores reported on GMAT Club. This statistic would not be there. Okay. And then the reason why you see this advice is very different is because the results are very different in this case. And you won't have these many 5-star reviews. Here's some anecdotal example. One of our former students, Anastasia, she went to Columbia. She said you should read all the text, not just the first and last paragraph. And once you do that, it takes only 30 to 50 seconds to answer questions. Read every sentence with what e-GMAT calls as the SC hat. If you've gone through master comprehension, that's the SC hat over there. Okay. This guy struggled for preparing for the GMAT, gave 2 attempts, couldn't improve, then started using the e-GMAT methods. And this is what you have to realize, is that you have enough time to cover all the questions. Do not stress about timing at all. Take more than 3 minutes to read the passage. The strategy has that initial investment, but it pays dividends. Why? Because you're able to answer questions in 45 to 60 seconds flat. Okay. Took about 2 minutes per question on an average, and that's 740 attempt. This guy improved from a V27 to V41, and in the first attempt, this guy very well spoken, very well read. He actually cleared the Indian equivalent of IAS. It's an IDES exam. So in case of RC, when he had already cleared IAS when he got the after that he got a V27. In case of RC, I was forced to read the passage multiple number of times for the reason I did not understand the passage. This was his V27 attempt, and then once he started applying reading strategies, this is what he said. He was able to get 94th percentile. Okay, you can see more and more of this. Each one of these people are on our YouTube channel, or is on our YouTube channel or so. I get afraid and confused when I read 350 words passage. The reason is you read it in the first go. You don't take notes. That's what I'm guessing. And you're not connected. Remember, I mean, think about it this way, right? Most of you want to be leaders in business field. How can you be afraid of just a test? And if you're afraid of a test, how will you make decisions where you have to invest $10 million or $20 million somewhere? Okay, just think about it. Should you read the whole para and make notes, or do line by line? If in the beginning, start with line by line. Don't let your brain be overwhelmed. And then as you get better, you're going to find, say, I can read 2 lines and then take notes. I can read 3 lines and then take notes. Your brain will itself tell you. Make it a process. Okay. The same thing as sports. How many times should I practice a certain shot? It depends on how long does it take for you to reach perfection. The thing which is there is you have to practice the right things. Okay. There are 2 things I want to tell you. Most people who get to that 90th percentile, they're not avid readers. They're not voracious readers. Okay. And most voracious readers who actually get to that 90th percentile are the ones who follow reading strategies. Again, remember, voracious readers easy to get to that 70th percentile here, but not 90th percentile. Okay. Again, these are the reasons you make mistakes. Focus on avoiding those reasons. Build good habits. But the way you build good habits is by learning core skills. And this is where, if you're an e-GMAT, start with learning how to read a sentence. We have an entire module on how to read a sentence, where we start with a 2-word sentence, which is where we talk about building blocks of a sentence. And then we go from that to a 30-word sentence over here. And then we kind of tell you how to read a sentence and deconstructing long sentences. In this case, this is just the very foundation of how to read. Then we kind of move forward and say, how should you pause in a paragraph here? It's very, very important. Then you go to the RC course, you go through reading strategies. Again, how should you read paragraphs? Very, very important here. They have assessments in there. This is before you start any practice. Then we go through every concept, main point, inference, detail, application. We go through all of them. Purpose of this. Everything's explained to you so that you know the concepts, you know how to approach each question type before you attack them. Okay. But it's your diligence that's important. The way it's your diligence is important in answering in reading the passage. Similarly, your diligence is important when it comes to studying. If you focus on learning, you're going to find improvement comes a lot faster. If you don't focus on learning, you're going to find that you're going to have to practice a lot, and you'll struggle a lot, and many of you will give up. Okay. So with that, focus on learning the core skills so that you can read the passage better, and learning the good habits so that you can answer questions more accurately. Okay. And for the first thing, understand where you are so that you can understand the kind of effort you need at your end. Okay. With that, if you want to get how to build your study plan, you can click over here. Let me share the session PDF. And if you guys have questions, you can put those questions in the Q&A pod. How many RC passages? Typically 4. Okay, and in the short answer pod, please tell me your feedback on the session as your session PDF. All right. So how long will it take for someone to go from a 650 to a 730? About 110 to 120 hours or so is how long it takes people to go from 650 to 730. LM program. How do I get to be a part of it? The way you get to be a part of it is prove that you're a diligent student, prove that you've internally improved to a 650, 670, and then we pair you with a mentor and who then takes you to that next level. Okay. All right, guys. Other questions, feedback on the webinar? V20 to V35 plus for low RC accuracy. So if you're just looking at improving your RC, it's about 45 to 50 hours of effort. If that's all you think is there between V20 and V35. Um, if on the other hand, there is something else as well, which, if RC is your main area, that's great. So that's about 45, 50, but, depending on how much stuff beyond that do we need to do, you could add another 20 hours or 20 to 30 hours or so to that. Typically, when you're looking at 7 points, of improvement, budget, and again, this is in what I call as the fast improvement range, V28 to V35. Um, you should budget about between 70 and 90 hours or so, because you always have to revise what you already know. It's not just about learning. How do you avoid getting demotivated between the tests? I think there are a couple of things you need to do. All right. Um, First is essentially make sure that you communicate and you write down why you're doing an MBA. Second is communicate to people around you that you are studying for that test, and that you will have less time for other engagements. How many of you have done that? Just in this case, communicated to people around you, hey, I'm studying for it, and I'll have less time for such engagements, and gotten their buy-in. Getting their buy-in is very important. Okay. The third thing you have to do is make time. And this again is beyond, of course, communicating helps, but beyond that, you also have to change your daily routine in a way where you say maybe you arrange for food from outside. Maybe you decide to do workout twice a week. You decide to do workout in the house. You create a workout routine, but you've got to make time that didn't was used for other activities earlier. You make time for that. The fourth thing is essentially study in just one slot. A lot of people really say, hey, study in the same slot that you're going to take the test on. Yes, that's important towards the end of the exam. In the beginning, you've got to make sure that you have one time slot to study so that you don't have to make a decision. Those are prerequisites. If you know why you're taking the GMAT, understand it. It's just a test. If you study for it the right way, then, there's no reason why you'd get demotivated, especially if you have a dedicated time and if you focus on learning. A lot of us focus on our improvement. How many of you continue to take mocks and really say, okay, I've studied for 2 weeks, let me take a mock and see how much I've improved? How many of you do that? One of the worst things that you can do is take mocks. And the answer says did but failed badly. Why? Because a mock score is a combination of about 8 different subsections. You focus on one subsection, your overall score could still go down because essentially you maybe improved in the subsection that you focused on, but the other subsections went down. As a result, what happens if you're studying SC, you kind of improved on SC, but you probably didn't improve to the complete extent. You'd start studying number properties because you failed on because you didn't perform as well on number properties, and you'll leave SC midway. When you do that, you kind of take mocks every couple of weeks. You go through what I call as a zigzag approach. And when you want to go from your starting score to your ending score, a zigzag approach is one of the worst ways you want to do. Okay. Which is why if you're an e-GMAT student, we say 2 to 3 weeks, focus on one thing, make sure you know what metrics you need to hit, hit make sure you do cementing, make sure you hit your metrics in Scholaranium. Once you hit those metrics, only then move to the next stage. And if you're still confused whether you should move to the next subsection, write to the strategy team. They will look at your account, they will tell you whether you've hit those metrics. Okay, don't take mocks. Aisha, that's one of the other ways, because mocks demotivate you. Has that happened with you, Aisha? Or Aisha? Mocks took a mock, and that's yes. Don't take mocks. There are dedicated quizzes on e-GMAT platform, which which tell you whether you've improved. Every learning activity is evaluated. So if you're getting those good scores in those learning activities, then you are improving. I mean, there's a reason why we account for 60% or 3 out of 5 700 plus scores on GMAT Club, because essentially every we track your improvement, we give you feedback. When you get feedback and when you're doing well, you get that positive feedback. You have trust in that approach, and you continue to invest your time in the right direction. You don't practice blindly. Okay. All right, guys. With that, hopefully that helps. Again, take a look at the free trial. See if this is something that works with your learning style. Take a look at our reviews. Look at how students improve their scores, and if you think e-GMAT's the right solution, then go for it. Okay, we offer a risk-free paid version. If you buy the course, don't like it for the first 7 days, you can always get a refund if you don't like it. Actually, one other thing, talk to other people around at top business schools, and they'll tell you, most of them, especially if you're from India, would have used the e-GMAT course. This year, I think half the class at TUG is composed of e-GMATers. Okay. With that, I want to thank you very much for joining me today. Um, it was good having you guys. You guys participated fabulously. And as I said, take a look at the free trial, attend the algebra session tomorrow, and see if this learning style suits you. Okay. Bye-bye, and have a great day.